Just 2 rounds left in the Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Championship as the series rolls into Watkins Glen in upstate New York. This championship has seen a dead tie in the Silver Championship and a runaway favorite in the Pro class looking to make SRO history. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Austin Belke. And Austin, you couldn't ask for a more perfect racetrack as this season draws to its conclusion in just a couple of rounds. But in your mind, what makes this place such a special racetrack and venue?
Hey, Jesse. Yeah, glad to be here. This place is just awesome. It's one of my most favorite racetracks. I think if you asked anybody, everybody likes this track. If it isn't their favorite, it's definitely in their top 5 or top 10. It's just a blast to drive around in any sort of a car, especially a pure thoroughbred race car like the GT3 cars we're going to see here in about 5 or so minutes take to the track. This place used to host the F1 races. It did for about 20 years from the early 60s to the early 80s, and it's just going to be an absolute blast to see the racing going on here today.
Sure is. As always, here is the entry list. The heavy hitters, of course, sprinkled in the mix as well. Fidel Morera, as we'll see on the championship standings, looking to make a move here with just a couple of rounds left. Of course, Igor Rodriguez also here on the track. Marek Levesque, your co-leader in the silver class that I alluded to in the pre-show. It's going to be one of those rounds. It's a special racetrack, as my partner Austin mentioned. It's going to be a special race. We're going to separate the wheat from the chaff. There's an American saying. Yeah, we're here at SRO America. Why not? It's going to be one of those kind of races. We're going to see what we're going to set up for the championship finale. We've got an hour's worth of racing around a very fast racetrack. And no, of course, we are running the full Watkins Glen, the boot, as well. A very fast racetrack, Austin.
It certainly is, and what I like most about the boot, it just makes the lap longer. All the corners are just as fun, but it's very interesting the kind of different lines you have to take, and it's so incredibly hard to nail the toe of the boot. That corner is so hard to get right. Breaking into it isn't hard. You can throw the car in there just because it's kind of banked for you, but it's really hard to determine when you have to get back up on the throttle and kind of wheel the car back out to the outside of the track. And then lastly, coming not just the heel of the boot, but when you come out of it, that turn 9 complex, it's very up and over. You know, you're kind of cresting a corner. It's a little bit off camber, and guys like the likes of Helio Castroneves, Simon Pagenaud have been caught out there in Indy cars in real life. So it's so easy to just loop the car right around there.
Certainly is. It's a tricky racetrack. It's a fast racetrack. You make incredibly quick laps around this joint. And again, talking about the points championship, just how close that they have been. It's been this way all season, but let's start off with the pro standings. Let's take a look exactly what we're working with. Igor Rodriguez trying to make history. Only one other time in SRO competition has a driver won 4 out of 5 rounds. Rodriguez is chasing that today. Runaway favorite for Williams Esports in that Audi thus far today. It looks like he qualified well. His teammate Fidel Morera, his nearest competitor. And as they scroll down, you can see just how quickly and closely they get bunched together. Just a few points here separating all of these positions. If that, it means a lot. 1 point could be a position for you. That's how close the pros are in the middle of the field. That's the history we were talking about. Let's show you again the silver championship standings. This gets well tasty here, of course. Marek Levesque and Cody Sherritt tied at the top of the table. They've mirrored each other all season, and they will go head-to-head here today to try and set the pace for the finale in about a month's time. And it doesn't get any easier the further you go back in the silver class. It has been every car and driver for themselves. Everywhere you look, 1 point, 2 points, maybe at the most 3 points separated, and even at a couple of instances in the middle of the field for P10, they're still tied, Austin. It's so close.
Yeah, there's even a couple guys within 1 or 2 points there of taking away third in a championship point standing. So to say it's really tight in the silver category is almost an understatement because it's tight at the top. You got one guy in third place apart from 1 point, right? Separating the guys tied for fourth and fifth. It's just absolutely incredible how close the silver championship has continued to be. And like I said, 3 races down. We're in the 4th race. I couldn't believe it'd be this close after 3 races.
It is so very close. Hinted at it earlier. It is the case. Igor Rodriguez is on pole position, a 42.112. Good enough for pole for Williams Esports. But Jade Hutchinson for Automobili Lamborghini Esports comes out P2. It was a 42.392 for them. That will set them opposite pole, about a tenth or so back. You've got Negrini for Acetec SimSport Visceral at a 42.552. And rounding out the top couple of rows, Cody Sherritt, the Genesis Esports car, 42.657. Qualifying is always such a close affair around here, Austin. It was here today. We're talking about a 42.1 for your pole sitter. Down to 15th, it was a 43.2, but in between there, it's very close. A tenth maybe between most of our competitors.
Yeah, and a tenth at a racetrack this long, it's confusing just how small 1/10 of a second is around a racetrack this big. You think, oh, a tenth of a second, there's 10 of them in a second. A second is already a short amount of time, but this racetrack is extremely long when you think it really just boils down to maybe taking a little bit tighter of an apex in one corner or not quite being able to put the power down in another part of the track. It's so infinitesimally small between one driver to the next. If you gain maybe a couple tenths of a second, you might find yourself up 5 or 10 spots on this grid, and it's so hard to pass here when the field is this tightly packed together.
Well, here they are under the starters' orders. They're all setting off on their sighting lap. They'll get one of those, and then they will be released in anger for 1 hour just after 3 p.m. in sim time here in upstate New York. We're glad that you're with us here today for this race, and just look at this beautiful racetrack. So much history here. They used to race in the streets of Watkins Glen, and at some point it was decided that it was slightly unsafe. Can you believe that? And that is when, of course, they built this permanent race circuit. So many fantastic legendary series race here, not least of them SRO, and that is, of course, why we're here today. Such a lovely story and a lovely place to be.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, a championship at the top echelon of motorsports not coming to Watkins Glen at least once a season, or at least in the lifetime, right, of that racing series. Formula One, NASCAR still comes here every year. IndyCar came here for a little bit. Different, functions of motorsport come here, and it's just such a famous track, and it's so neat that they used to race on the actual streets, and at one point, like you mentioned, maybe that's a little bit too unsafe. Why don't we just create its own race course? But yeah, they truthfully did. They used to race around the actual streets of downtown Watkins Glen. So just to have it kind of transcend that, just the way motorsports has come, Watkins Glen is just a perfect kind of personification of what that means.
There's an old wives' tale, but I'm not sure if it's true or not, that the actual reason why they stopped wasn't due to the danger. It was because they were blowing out shop windows with the cars, with the reverberation. I'm not sure if there's any merit to that. That might have just been an old tale I was told many years ago. Out there on the sighting lap, a lot to take in, a lot to consider, a lot to think about for Jade Hutchinson. How do they get the drop on Igor Rodriguez, and the vice versa of that for Rodriguez out in front, knowing the pressure of the moment, knowing that they have a chance to make history here, or at least tie history, certainly making history in the pro class at least for Igor Rodriguez. I don't know if he's focused more on that or just getting a clean getaway. Easier said than done at this racetrack with that 90 right-hander down into turn 1.
It really is, because you want to be the car on the inside, because then you get to dictate how far you get to turn into the corner. But as soon as you kind of hit the apex, you go to widen yourself up on the exit. And if you have a car that's still to your outside, you're all of a sudden you have a slower run going up through the S's, which in these cars, especially on this start here, they're going to be able to go up there flat out, if not every single lap flat out up through the S's. A very fast right, left, right complex of corners before you go down the back straightaway. So you really do want to be that car on the inside until you get to the apex, and after that it kind of flip-flops, where if you're that guy on the outside, you can then dictate the line as you go up through the S's. So I think the first thing on Rodriguez's mind is A, nail a start, B, make sure I'm all by myself, single file, clear of everybody else as soon as he hits that apex and starts going up through the S's.
Some of our viewers may not be very familiar with this. The race hasn't started yet. but there is a copious amount of clag, amount of marbles on the outside of the race course. That is due to how the series operates. So considerable clag on the outside. You don't want to be forced wide on many of these corners. Final things to consider. What about Merrick Levesque? He's enjoyed the championship lead this entire series. Now finds himself tied with Cody Sherritt. Sherritt has taken silver pole position, and that means they are now in the lead of this championship, and they're on the lead on the road as well, sitting in that second row. Here we go, folks. We're 23 plus cars deep here for round number 4 of the Mobileye the Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Series live from Watkins Glen. All the cars have made it onto the front stretch. The flagman has the flag, and it's green, and we're away in green for round number 4. Shading off to the side is Rodriguez. He gets a clean run down into 1. What does the Lamborghini do? Finds a spot and falls back in line. They're 3 wide back in the group, and they've just about sorted it out. Still 3 wide in some places, looking to figure it out before they get to the S's.
Yeah, the S's is a super hard place to go up. It's really easy if you're single file. You can just hold it wide open throttle. But if you're 2x2, you have to really make sure you trust the driver to your outside. Too wide here as they go now into the bus stop. Some people call it the inner loop, still too wide. Almost a pass there for the second position.
1 car off there, and that's going to be a barrier. Those barriers do not move hard into them, into the bus stop chicane. Some call it the inner loop, and that car is going to reset to the pit lane. The waved yellow flags being released there. Several cars off into the background, off the pace anyway. 1 car resetting, and was that Sievert in the 39 or somebody else? We'll bring that to you when we can. Igor Rodriguez, despite what the screen says, they are the leader of the race. There it is. Williams Esports out in front of Jade Hutchinson and the Automobile Lamborghini car. They're all single file until you get just about back to Merrick Levesque, who's looking to make up some time. And even further back than that, Fidel Morera, the man who did not qualify particularly well considering they were second place in this championship. They've given it their all, but now today they're going to have to work their way from the middle of the pack.
Yeah, he's got a long hour ahead of him if he wants to get up there to try and steal as many points away as possible. At least try to close that gap, right? Obviously, he can't close the gap, but he can at least try to stop that bleeding, per se, in the championship standings. So far, the first 10, 12 so cars, all single file now as they come out of the last corner here on the race course. And like we said, in this boot configuration, there are 11 corners. Now you see everybody going back down into turn 1 extremely fast down here. There's lots of banking there to catch the car.
Estefano Barrera here in the middle of the pack. I say in the middle of the pack. He's inside the top 10, looking to make some hay. He's got Levesque in front of him. Levesque, of course, trying to sort the way around Worley, who is just in front of them as well. These positions matter. Levesque starting sort of, actually, I think he went back a position perhaps. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly right around where they would have qualified, looking to make up some ground. Needs to get some points here on Sherritt. Sherritt, of course, has their own sort of issues at the moment. They have Worley, who now has jumped up to 5th, so timing and scoring sorting itself out certainly. Sherritt not alone up there for the silver class. All these drivers in silver in this group know one thing: all these points are on offer. The easiest time to get them is early.
Yeah, really, you can kind of do a good job to catch some people off guard, or maybe their tires aren't quite up to temperature yet, or they just haven't quite settled in to the race. It's really easy to kind of catch somebody off guard and maybe push them into a wide entry to a corner, or maybe make them just a little bit on the back foot for some of the other corners here as we look at Merrick Levesque here, 8th place in at number 88. Obviously, silver class drivers. Let's just touch on this in case people aren't too familiar. The pro drivers have the white background there and the black numbers. If they're a silver driver, they have the gray background and the white numbers. Silver drivers coming out in force here. Practically 15 cars out of the top 20 are that silver category.
Keep in mind, silver might not be what you're used to or what you're expecting. Silver drivers are not necessarily slower drivers in this series. It's all to do with how they qualified, and that determined the classes. Of course, top so many in the silver class get, I believe they get ported into pro for the next season as well. Very fun stuff, and good racing here early on. They've just about settled it. The one significant issue early into this race that sent a car into the pit lane And other than that, it's been pretty darn good. Levesque looking to defend here. I thought he was making a move. No, it was the opposite of that. That was Barrera. Barrera trying to make a move on his teammate, unable to do that. The Asetek SimSport Visceral cars, there's no team orders here, even with the championship on the line. They're racing each other early.
Yeah, it's weird to see two teammates kind of attacking one another, especially as you go into the bus stop. That is not a place you want to be thinking about making a move on your teammate when the two of you kind of aren't just jointly, one in the same mind. So it's kind of weird to see that look happen there, that nasty defense from one teammate to another. But it wasn't dirty. I just kind of surprised her resulting to moves like that this early into the race, where you can kind of just communicate to say, hey, I'll maybe crack the throttle a little bit before the bus stop, and you can kind of just dive right in there. But overall, it's still doing great for both those guys.
As far as a move is concerned, it was quite reserved. Exactly what you would expect for teammate on teammate racing. Not willing to put their teammate in a disadvantageous position, not willing to let the other cars get closer to them. And look at them now, back single file, driving away a little bit from Mark Anthony Landry in the EGT Motorsports Audi. And that's exactly what those Asetek cars wanted to see. A little bit of breathing room, maybe orchestrate the pass, but again, also too, how much is the team willing to orchestrate a pass like that, considering Levesque is the one in the championship hunt. We'll have to see what sort of team play goes on. Meanwhile, up at the front of this field, you're not seeing things, folks. The magenta numbers on the top left corner of the scoring pylon, that indicates the fastest lap of the race. There's two of them, which means they have tied. That's right. The two top runners in this race have ran the exact same lap time, down to the 1,000th of a second, and they are both credited with the fastest lap of the race. And it's little wonder Hutchinson has absolutely kept up with Rodriguez.
Yeah, he's really taking it to the big man right now. I'm surprised just how close he's been able to stay. Had a great qualifying effort, but he's really taking it to him right now for that first spot. See, just within a half a second, as we look further back through the field, there's that two teammates we were talking about there, trying to see if they can now take it to the Aston Martin just ahead of them.
That is excellent in-car view of Skylar Loverink in the Bricks Racing 520. That appears to be a full-on motion rig that they're using. Talk about top-level competition. Oh, a little bit of a contact there, a little bit of a touch as Levesque trying to make the pass down the inside. Not enough room there. Minor contact indeed. Loverink ends up keeping that position for the time being. But what has that done? That has brought Barrera, Landry, Oliveira, and Martineau, all of these cars back into this fight for what is essentially 7th place.
Yeah, they did a great job, the two teammates there from the Asetek SimSports Visceral team. They did a really good job to just kind of manage that gap and get up there to take away those positions there. The two Ferraris, they were trying to pass Lovering. That was my bad. A Ferrari on Ferrari action. We're looking now from Vinny Oliveira from Asetek SimSports Visceral as he's trying to hunt down Landry just up the road. And this is one of those points where Watkins Glen is sometimes difficult to pass because everybody is almost right on the chip. And when I say that, just maximum speed as fast as they can go. Looking here at Barrera, see if he can get a move done. It's going to go to the outside. I like this power play. He's going to have the draft as they now head to the bus stop. I think he's going to pull it off here.
There he absolutely has made the pass. Our first intervention from race control. Incident between cars 110 and number 3 on lap 1. 15-second time penalty for car 110 for causing a collision. I wonder if that's what led to the car into the barrier in the interloop. Now, I have to wait for confirmation on that, but nevertheless, a mighty 15-second penalty for Doran.
Yeah, that's a huge one too. I mean, to be fair, if that was the incident we're talking about, then that penalty definitely makes a whole lot of sense because that was a hard lick. I mean, but potentially ended somebody's entire race before it had even started. I mean, halfway around on lap 1 to be already out of the race this soon. And it's an hour long. It's not a good look, and it just sucks to be a race car driver in that kind of situation.
Well, Landry is not hanging around in the 711 Audi. They've dispatched one of the Asetek cars in Barrera and now looking to get by Levesque, though the gap is open just a little bit. Levesque back on the back of Lovering for 7th place. Keep in mind, Levesque doesn't get additional championship points for passing the 520 Ferrari, but he has to do that to get up there with the Worlds and Sherritt, the man he's chasing in the championship. So it's a necessary pass, but it's not a pass that gets you anything extra. The points, of course, are settled by class, not overall classification. So one of those things, you're having to race a different class. They will be accustomed to that. They've done it all season. A lot of these drivers will have done it the season before that, and potentially the season even before that. But it's a frustrating situation to be in, Austin, because you know you have to make the pass, you know you have to do it correctly, but you also know you cannot waste time. You've got to make this pass. You can't look at the class too much. You just got to think, it's another position, it's another car. I've got to do it.
Yeah, and it's so aggravating at the same time, too, because you're really not racing that other driver for points. So you say, well, why doesn't he just get out of the way? And it goes back to what we talked about the entirety of last race at Silverstone, right, where there's kind of an insurance policy between those two drivers of, hey, I'm okay to sit where I am right now because that other silver class guy has to get through the pro car behind me before he can even start to attack me. As you see, two wide bell here. This is the last spot on the overall podium. You see Cody Sherritt there, 2x2 with Negrini there, and that Audi there left of your screen.
Good racing going on there. 30-second time penalty for car 95 for causing a collision. That was versus car number 10 back on lap number 1. 30 seconds. That is a mighty penalty. As bad as 15 is, 30. That's about as big as I've ever seen in this series. So that must have been a hefty impact.
Yeah, that's about a third of a lap around here. I mean, these cars are pulling, 140? So that's just about a third to a quarter of a lap around this big facility, and that's really going to take you out of contention. Like you said, 15 seconds is pretty much race stopping. 30 seconds, you might as well park it once you come down pit road to serve that. So we'll see how well they can recover, but that is most certainly going to take those two cars out of contention depending on where they come out and how the rest of the race sorts itself out. As here, as you see, Levesque still trying to see if he can pass Loverink here again. This is one of those situations, Ferrari on Ferrari, two drivers not in the same class, but you still need to go through the field in order to catch up to the other drivers in your own class. Levesque not really trying to take his time, but it's just one of those things. You can't go up there and really attack somebody and be stupid with it. You have to be reserved. Think about your moves, kind of like playing chess.
I'm only smart enough to play checkers, but the good news is that Levesque and Lovereek have sort of lost Landry for the time being. No further action for an incident on lap 1 between cars 43 and 14. So there we go. We're more used to that here up in the booth, seeing a lot of no further action, meaning that the race control tends to let the drivers race, and we usually only see penalties when they're quite significant. We've seen 2 of those so far, and now no further action. Anthony Landry here in the 7-Eleven, driving from virtual reality today. How real do you want it, Austin?
Yeah, that was awesome, man. I mean, look at him. He's just getting after it here. He's got the goggles on for the virtual reality. It was a killer move, though, by Barrera, just behind him to take over that 9th position. Just shoved it into the corner there. Got a little bit too wide, and then got past there by Barrera. So great job on Barrera's part to go ahead and take away that position. That was some awesome stuff. Trying to minimize the part that Draft can play in this, going all the way down to the inside, almost by that pit wall there down the front stretch.
Just got the position back, not interested in giving them another opportunity at making that pass again. Aaron Stefano in the 98, the Argentinian driver, doing their very best in the middle of the silver field, in the middle of this race. Got Gulzar in front of him, and that's where his most interest lies. He sees a line of cars, and just about all of them are for position up to the 43.
Yeah, he finds himself in a really safe position right now, Stefano, because he's got nobody out the back door for a good amount of time. There's another Acura behind him, but there's a decent gap to him right now. Pretty much the entirety of the carousel there. He has kind of a safety net, so he can just basically go full attack mode right now and try to get these positions, because a lot of times what will happen here when you try to pass somebody, let's take Oliveira, for instance. He's trying to get around Landry right now, doing his absolute best, but if he slips up, kind of has a little bit of a bad angle going into or out of a corner, he's got Martineau just behind him. Martineau might be able to snag that position back, and that's one of the most frustrating things as a race car driver. When you're trying to set up a pass on somebody else, you make maybe a little bit of a slip up just because you took a little bit of a bad angle going into the corner, and now all of a sudden the driver behind you passes you. So not only do you not make the pass, but you've lost one, so you're -1 on the whole interaction.
Oliveira, as soon as they were coming into the boot section of the racetrack, he was on the flasher button, letting Landry know, hey, I am in a different class than you. Do not fight me. There's no reason to fight me. Of course, you're allowed to battle inter-class. As long as you're on the same lap, there's no rule that says you can't do that. Oh, my goodness, off the racetrack there was Renan Negrini, and that's going to only allow Cody Sherritt to draw in. Sherritt's lost the number 40 of World for the moment, and has now set their sights on a little insurance. If he can get by Negrini, he can put a pro car in between him and the next nearest in his class, and who doesn't like some mid-race insurance?
Yeah, that's one thing that a driver just can't get enough of, right? As a race car driver, you're always after that unfair advantage. Here it's not necessarily unfair, but it is kind of an insurance policy, a safety net, if you will, just to guarantee yourself that, hey, whoever is fighting me for position behind me, they have to get through somebody else before they can get up to me. And it's the same thing whether you're battling with drivers in the same class or a different class, kind of anything like that. So you're always looking for that little bit of a safety net, and it's kind of human nature, right? You want to be, in some cases, on the safe side of things. But I tell you what, man, Whirl is doing a great job keeping up with them and just applying that pressure from a far distance. And that's basically just saying, hey, I'm here. If you make a mistake or do something silly, I'm going to be on your butt trying to take that position.
Certainly is. And for Negrini here, it's a lose-lose situation. If you let them go, then you're a space further back behind Hutchinson and Rodriguez, who have yet to have more than a second of a gap between the two of them. And if you don't do it, you're fighting a car that you're not giving up points to and losing time anyway. It's a lose-lose. It's an unfortunate situation. Some might argue the best course of action for Negrini is just to try and get behind Sherritt at this point, but nothing doing yet, as Sherritt continues to follow along quite closely. No look or move as of yet. Cameron Martineau in the 38 for STR. A little bit of get on the front straight there, wipe the brow a little bit, get the hair out of the face, focus back down for another lap. The common racing driver technique, as he's right on the back of Vinny Oliveira for 11th place. This, of course, is for position.
Oh, he got a really good run there through the first part of the S's. Let's see if he can keep it going. I'm really interested. This is one of the most frustrating parts right here of Watkins Glen, is you get a really good run up to the S's, but you catch a guy a little bit too soon. He's caught him just a little bit earlier than I would have expected, but yeah, just going to have to fall back in line. That's a real shame. He had such a good run there, but I think he just had to crack the throttle a little bit, and that didn't necessarily take away the entirety of his run, but it did certainly kind of blunt that momentum a little bit. Otherwise, I think we would have seen him clear himself the same way I believe that was Abrera getting around Landry.
Yeah, Martineau even set himself up in the bus stop there just to be offline a little bit from Oliveira, just to make sure that if Oliveira slipped up, he had a clean way to get around. That's what a pro racing driver does. They're thinking the corner ahead, a couple of corners ahead. How do I set this guy up? How do I put myself in the most advantageous position? I feel like that's what Martineau's doing right here, as any time you see Oliveira go down to the corner, you're seeing something contrarian, something different from Cameron here, just trying to set up their car to be wherever Oliveira isn't.
Yeah, he's looking for clean air when he does that. You know, these cars with all the tilly little aero bits on them, that helps to reduce downforce. As soon as you're, right up behind, tucked underneath somebody's rear wing or in their slipstream, you're losing all that downforce on the front end of the car. So you need to kind of offset yourself just a little bit. Part of it is kind of what we do in American short track racing, right? You kind of enter the corner a little bit high and then cut back down to the bottom. He's not going to have to do that right now. He's just going to cut down to the bottom. But there you see that little bit of a blunt of momentum. That car on the outside could dictate the corner, especially dictates the exit. That's going to put Cameron on the back foot a little bit, I think, right here for this run up through the S's and then down the back straightaway towards the bus stop. Let's see if Cam can get a good run on, but I think it's going to be too little too late here.
Pretty good run for Martineau, but closed off from Oliveira. Fidel Morera in the background in the Porsche, coming into the picture here very quickly, going to be a part of this battle. Got a poor exit, did Morera, out of the chicane. Went a little bit too far over the curb. There is a lip on that chicane. If you catch it wrong, it can cause all sorts of problems, and just about got it, but was able to keep it on the racetrack that time through, but certainly has caught that group. A little bit further back, more silver racing action. Jonathan Clifford for Alpha Sim Sport looking to make up some ground here. And certainly in the sandwich, as it were, it's got Portis II directly in front of him in that Acura, looking to make that move, but not allow Patrick behind in the 59 Porsche any sort of way to make a move on him. We talked about that just briefly a moment ago. A lot of times when you're setting up the car in front, you can accidentally be setting yourself up to be passed as well in these trains.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about a couple laps ago too, Jesse, is you try to set yourself up in one way, which means taking a compromising entry to one of the corners to help yourself on the exit. But as soon as you do that, you open the door for someone else to get to your inside or to just pounce on you, maybe diverting your attention to another part of the race. And that can happen all the time, and that's just the way race car drivers are. They're always looking for an opportunity to pass a guy or take advantage of somebody every single corner, every single lap. As we ride on board here with Lucas Worlds, he goes up through the S's. You can see the kind of perfection you need in the line to get as good a run as possible as you go up through the S's, and now you're hurtling towards that bus stop here. So we get down there, usually braking. Where is he going to brake? Maybe about the 200. That's when he started to kind of tip the car in. It's amazing how much speed these GT3 cars can take, especially through the bus stop.
Yeah, and especially how much curb they can take. A lot of times in other series, they have to avoid the curbs almost altogether. There are quite high curbs around some of the course, including the bus stop section or the interloop if you prefer, but absolutely nothing out of world there. Just completely calm, cool, collected, as if he's on a Sunday cruise around this racetrack, but absolutely in anger. That car looked very good. You know, a fast racing driver doesn't have to look like he's driving fast to be quick. I think we've always been taught that.
Yeah, I think it was Alan Prost who said it best, was if I look like I'm fast, I'm driving slow and out of control. If I look like I'm driving slow, I am fast and under control. And I think that's just how it is, right? You want to have that car look as straight as you can, but in your mind, to you, you are on the absolute limit of grip, because a fast lap is often a slow one. Or a fast-looking lap, I should say.
Certainly is. If you're having to overdrive the car to get lap time out of it, surely you're losing time doing exactly that. What you want to be doing is smooth and fast. You don't want to be skidding around, and certainly know that from the lap prior. This is an interesting camera angle. This is inside the engine bay of the Acetec SimSport car of Renan Negrini, and it sort of shows the scale of the issue thus far. Cody Sherritt, who was a little bit quicker a few laps ago, admittedly. This is for third place, but Sherritt now falling off the back of Negrini, and that will be almost a sigh of relief for Negrini, as Sherritt just trying to keep that car in control. You see the picture-in-picture here. You've got Negrini on the left and Sherritt on the right, showing you their sort of perspective of the situation for P3. I think Negrini did a good job there, Austin, personally. Didn't overreact to give up the spot too early. The pace sort of equalized and maybe came back to the Audi just a little bit. Maybe Sherritt backed off, realizing that they had a gap to whirl behind and didn't have to press as hard. Maybe they're both kind of happy with exactly where they are right now. You can only hope it lasts.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Negrini really impressed me there with just how calm he stayed under the pressure of this whole situation, right? With Sherritt absolutely tucked underneath his rear wing for so long. He's still there. I mean, don't get me wrong, if Negrini makes a slip up, Cody's going to get this position, but hey, it gives us a great opportunity to talk about that pit window, right? This race is 60 minutes long. The middle 20 minutes of this race, you can come in. It's a mandatory pit stop, and right now, if you're Cody Sherritt, if you think you're faster, but it's just hard to get that track position on the guy, come down pit road right away. Get yourself out in clean air if you can find it. About how long is the pit stop in the drive-through pit lane? Maybe we'll say a minute. If you can go a minute behind yourself where you are on track, if you can come out in clean air, fantastic opportunity to pit right here, especially if you're right on the back bumper of the guy ahead of you. I think right here we should see Morera come down pit road, because he's got a lot of cars to pass, and they're all necessarily kind of right out in his windshield here. So if he's going to have clean track behind him, now's a great time for him to pit.
Trends of the season, of course, the majority of the field comes in at or around the halfway mark. 30 minutes to go in the race. If you are leading or sort of out in space, you may elect to go a lap or two longer, but not a lot of late pitters. We have seen some try the gamble to go late. Almost nobody this entire championship has come in early and attempted to make that work. I think we've had one or two cars all season try that out, and by that process of elimination, that kind of tells you how the early pit strat goes. But expect your leaders to maybe stay out a lap or two longer. That being said, once this season, I've seen the leaders set the trend and come in and be among the first to come in. So we'll see what they're opting for today.
Yeah, and how about this? Just a note here quickly as we see this battle going on for the 6th place. You see Merrick Levesque trying to go on the attack right here to take this position away from Whirl in the number 4. Hutchinson, almost a second and a half behind Rodriguez. So he's up there doing what he's done all season. Kind of reminds me of a Kiss song. It's the same old situation.
And by the way, folks at home, if you're confused why there's 2 L Whirls in the race, allow me to educate you. The number 40 is driven by Lindro Whirl, and the number 4 car is Lucas Whirl. These are 2 different Whirls. I suspect they are related to one another. I think that's a safe bet. But they are 2 different people. Here's Lindro Whirl. They both drive for Arnage Competition. They are 2 different people. We have not duplicated or found a way to make other racing drivers, but they are almost certainly related. And quite fortunately, there is a little bit of a gap, because what's the worst thing, the only thing, Austin, worse than hitting your teammate in a race, is hitting a family member that you're racing against, because that makes dinner very awkward.
Yeah, you say that, but I've heard a lot of drivers say they would move their own grandma out of the way for a race when it came down.
Oh, so would I.
I don't think I could do that to my grandma. I think I'm a little bit more reserved. I think I wouldn't move anybody unless they moved me out of the way previously. But everybody says one thing and then they act totally different when they're stuck in that situation here. As you see Vinny Oliveira just now making his way around Landry, finally breaking into those silver drivers.
All I got to say on that last comment is move over, Grandma. I'm coming through. That's all I got to say. I ain't got time. Just move the rocking chair just a few feet over and let me get through. Cody Sherritt still in 4th place. Behind them, this hive of activity. Here is Lucas Whirl for Arnage Competition. The cork in the bottle just a little bit. Merrick Levesque up to P7 and right behind Whirl. And Loverink, who, of course, was previously in 7th place, has surrendered that spot. But because Lucas Whirl is the cork in the bottle, has brought them right back into this fight. And if this goes on much longer, the Asetek teammate of Barrera is going to be back in this fight as well. Is that a pit stop maneuver down to the inside of the track? That looked very odd indeed. And I'd be curious what a car... That is certainly a pit stop. Loverink in.
Yeah, good move by him. Honestly, with all the pressure going on, you got a lot of different drivers on the racetrack. Can I just comment though on how fast Lucas Whirl's hands are moving? Look at him as he goes through these corners. The S's, he's going to be a little bit more cool, calm, and collected, but he's really having a saw on this steering wheel. Kind of Ryan Blaney style, where the hands are just all over the place. And unfortunately for Ryan Blaney, you can see when he's, what's wrong with Lovering? He stopped out. Oh, no, never mind. They're just doing that.
They don't pit on the concrete here, yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite confusing. A lot of series do pit on the concrete. GT does not pit on the concrete. They pit on the asphalt for, I'm assuming that has something to do with traction reasons. They've always sort of done that. Multiple cars in the pit lane. Fidel Morera in the pit lane. Gulzar is in. Kerstetter, Patrick Loverink, who we mentioned earlier, Rera into the pit lane as well. Carden Liu also in the lane that time by. Just about everybody else continues on. Now, does that ring the dinner bell? Will more cars be coming through this time?
I think so, yeah. I think it's really going to open the opportunity for a lot of guys to want to come down onto pit road now. And we are at that halfway point, too. So I think it's just a lot of drivers basically trying to set themselves up for basically pitting about halfway through the race. And it's just easier to get on and off of pit road when you're kind of the only one in the ballpark of cars around you doing it. So if you can come down pit road all by yourself, oh, so you see one car. I think this is in the carousel. No, that's at the toe of the boot. Yeah, Timothy Flaminger. He was off course there pretty hard.
He certainly was. Got it gathered back up and will continue for Alpha Sim Sport, but an unfortunate moment for Timothy Flamker. You know, we're going to show you a replay of something you may have caught just the end of, and more cars coming into pit lane as you see Negrini, Levesque into the pit lane, including Landry as well. Everybody else does continue on. You may notice, the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that the number 4 car of Lucas Whirl is no longer with us at the top of this field. We suspect there being some sort of connection-based issue there.
Yeah, you could see he was that one car that kind of just went for a magic carpet ride right off the track there, and that's basically very cut and dry, basically some sort of an internet connectivity issue between he and the racing server. So unfortunately for him, looks like he might have dropped out of the race to see if he can't get in here and maybe salvage some points for the championship, but otherwise that's a hard disconnection. He was 4th overall. He was doing really good for himself today.
Certainly was. You are allowed to reconnect as far as I am aware, and you can continue on. It's a long road to get back in contention, of course, that way, but I'm never just DNF kind of guy. I want to get everything I want to say, even if I don't finish well. I would like to be able to say, and I think most racing drivers have enough pride to say, I want to see the finish regardless of how bad the position is.
Oh, here comes Rodriguez. You can see him taking that entry to pit road there. Very decisive move for him to the inside of the yellow line. You can see Hutchinson in just behind him. Wants to keep Rodriguez in his sights right here. Race is not over. Chaid's going to know that. You can see both those drivers now onto pit road. Rodriguez obviously going to have to go basically to the absolute end of pit lane before he finds his pit box. And of course, Jay qualified right up there with him. So those two pretty much going to be pit box partners, neighbors, if you will.
Well, it's going to be also dangerous. It's sort of scary here, of course, because unlike most pit lanes, it's downhill when you get to this particular section of pit lane. So not only are you trying to hit your brakes on your mark to not go over your stopping point, because that will require ACC to make a judgment call. Do I have to move that car into position before it goes up on the jack stands? And that loses you time. That adds to it, the pit lane being sloped down into turn 1. Your braking point for your pit box might not be where you would expect it to be or where it would be on most other circuits. One of the trickiest pit lanes, not necessarily to get on, but one of the most trickiest pit lanes to find your box. It's like that way with Spa, but look at this. The top 2 competitors, they come in 1-2. They're going to exit somewhere slightly down the field. How much damage was done, and I don't think anything changed, as that was 2 mirrored pit stops. Well done by both of them.
Yeah, they went in separated by 1.4 and some change seconds. They exit pit road now still separated by about 1.4 and some change seconds. So both their drivers have dropped 3 spots each because Barrera, Oliveira, and Martineau have all stayed out for right now. I don't mind the strategy called by them. If you have clean racetrack out in front of you, go ahead and stay out on the racetrack for as long as possible. Try to help yourself just with that clean air. Clean air in these race cars is huge. And if you have the fuel left in your car, go ahead and stay out on the racetrack. See what's going to happen, because more cases than not, this is going to help those drivers that are kind of mired back in traffic. And you say that they were only, about 10th, 11th, 12th place. Oh, man, Barrera, he took a lot of speed into the bus stop, and he paid for it going over the curbs like that.
Certainly did. If he would have been a few inches further to the right, there's a gigantic, I don't know if it's a drainage ditch or just an undulation in the grass, but that can catapult you up into the wall, and you wouldn't imagine you could get to the outer loop wall from there, but I guarantee you can, and luckily able to avoid that. I agree with you as Vinny Oliveira into the pit lane from P3, but I agree with you. If you have space out in front, why not come or stay out as long as you can on your fuel? Maybe it was your strategy all along. I also like Rodriguez and Hutchinson's plan. Come in dead on the money at the halfway point. Know that you are going to be in a pocket in a gap where there's no other cars, and continue this fight. And continue this fight they are, separated by 1/3 of a second.
Yeah, looking here at Alvarado in the 13th position here in his Acura. Obviously, the drivers in this section of the race, they've all pitted already. There's still 7 minutes of the pit window time open. Looking here at Jade Hutchinson, he's caught right back up.
Wow.
Rodriguez here. Let's see if we can get a
I see.
That lap car really held up Rodriguez. It's hard to pass going up for the S's. Hutchinson taking a lot of time right here. Very reserved, a veteran move right there to not just go on attacking and do something kind of silly.
Look at Hutchinson. Look at the concentration on his face. Just a little bit of a moment there that could have potentially led to a change of what would eventually be the lead of the race. But Hutchinson has to know there's still a fight here. He caught him once. He can continue to do it. Oh, and he's off the racetrack. Look, Igor Rodriguez driving off to the racetrack, entering the boot. and that's going to do nothing but help Hutchinson catch up. It's going to dirty up Rodriguez's tires. Will we see another look here? Exiting the toe and through the back straight of the boot into the heel. A little bit of a look from Hutchinson this time. Not nearly close enough. Falls back in line. Gets back on the preferred line. And they are still nose to tail. Hutchinson had a look. He may have been able to force it down in there. Decided better of it. And I applaud that move. No reason to force a move that can't quite possibly go wrong there.
Yeah, he just wasn't quite close enough, really, to get that call, either car left or car right, before they went into the bus stop, and that was a great job to just kind of back off. But I like the strategy here. Just keep piling the pressure on, and there's a couple different areas where if you really pile on the pressure, you can force the driver ahead of you. Kind of just overdrive the corner a little bit. There's two big sections in my mind where you can do that. The bus stop or the inner loop. Just force them to go in a little bit deep, upset the car over the bumps, and then the heel of the boot. You're going downhill, super easy to just barely misplace your braking point, and all of a sudden, instead of inches off the apex like normal, worst case, you're a couple feet off, and it's really hard to gather that car back up. He's going to get a big run here down the backstretch. Let's see if he can do anything with it, or really just kind of keep this in his back pocket to say, you know what, I'm a timeout the run, see how much space I can gain, or maybe just force Rodriguez into a mistake. And it feels weird to say that, because Rodriguez has really just been the Iron Man to beat. He's been the man to beat, the gold standard for this entire season. So to take him down right here, if you're Hutchinson, this would be the kind of stuff of legend.
This is just incredible. These are two of the best to ever do it, and they're going head-to-head here in round number 4. This is excellent. I always get asked, what does it take to be a pro? What does it take to be an esports pro? It's this. You have to have ice water in your veins, and you have to have the decision-making of a Harvard scientist, almost. It's just that hard, because you're making a million decisions every second. You're trying to make lap time, again, in the top 1 percentile of all lap times in a race on fuel, not quali lap fuel. And you're racing somebody head-to-head for potentially a win. Barrera, by the way, in and out of the pit lane, as well as several of the other silver cars that had yet to make their final pit stops. So everything just about cycled through here just after the halfway point as expected. And what that has done in this race is it's created a lot of new pockets of racing on the racetrack, as pit stops often do, including Portis II, Flamger, and Patrick all racing each other for 20th place.
Yeah, these guys are extremely close, and it's unfortunate for Flamger that he finds himself back here in this battle. He was doing so much better before he had that little bit of an off track there, and what we believe was the toe of the boot. He just kind of went a little bit wide, and as soon as he could get the car back going, he did, but he still lost a lot of time as we now ride back on board here with Giant Hutchinson. If you're wondering where this is on the car, this is just above that front splitter. Talk about the kind of angles we can get in sim racing that we might be a little bit too reserved to have in real life.
I love the Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Series. We get to put cameras wherever we want them, and this shows you just the scope of what these two drivers are doing. You can tell so much from the body language of the race car. Just by looking at the splitter, you can tell everything about Rodriguez's car. Hutchinson will be going to school here as well, trying to learn as much as possible from Igor's car to figure out what he can do in his Automobile Lamborghini car to outfox him at some point in these next 23 minutes. We're at a point in the race. Pit stops have just about completed for everybody in contention here today, and what that's done is that's littered the racetrack with cars that are on the tail end of the lead lap or already off of the lead lap. Now here's the opposite perspective. This is inside the rear vent of the Williams Esports Audi, looking back at Hutchinson's car, and there's almost nothing in it. Keep in mind, they're driving around here doing 42s, 43s, racing each other, and though it doesn't look like much, this is, well, you said it earlier, Austin, this is a chess match.
It really is. It's a high-speed chess match, and all this is basically Hutchinson chasing Rodriguez around, and it's such a harrowing feeling being the driver being chased, because you're doing absolutely everything you can in your power to set up these amazing corners and stuff, but as soon as you get to a long straightaway, all of a sudden now Hutchinson has every advantage in the world, because you get all that draft down these straightaways, and these GT3 cars punch huge holes in the air. Really opens up the door for a lot of slipstreaming opportunities, as we see Landry now under attack from Morera. Riera, another case where we have two cars in different classes battling each other right here. And if I'm Landry, I might really consider, you've got a lot of space out the rear end of you, nobody really kind of going to contend for position. Go ahead, let Riera fly. Oh, I think he did. He just barely got a little bit hit there to push him off into the grass. See if you can learn anything from her. See if you can get some draft down these straightaways and just do the best you can in the corners to stay with him and just capitalize on that slipstream.
Mark Anthony Landry there almost went for a wild ride. It's easier said than done getting out of the grass at that speed, especially trying to get back on in time to make the bus stop chicane, but they did do with minor contact there perhaps. Another camera position on Igor Rodriguez's Williams, looking back at the Automobile Lamborghini of Hutchinson, this just outside of the rear wheel vent arch. Looking back at the Lamborghini, still no movement here, and you could really see just how close these drivers are getting to the walls, they're getting to the painted surfaces, and certainly just how close they're getting to some of the grassy surfaces that have absolutely no grip. Pinpoint accuracy required.
Yeah, I mean, at this level of motorsports, you need to be able to put that car within basically an inch or two of a wall or grass, or really get down there to that apex, because that's what's going to give you lap times. That's the difference between a 143 flat and a 143.5, even a 143.250. It's just all those different areas where you can gain just a little bit more time than your competition here. So you see Flamger trying to dig himself out of the hole he's put him in. He's got Yamamoto just up the road. Excuse me, Cordes, sorry.
Yamamoto out there sort of doing their own thing, but Kenneth Portis for Rotogrip Racing trying to make up some of that time. Timothy Flamger trying to do more than that. Mentioned earlier that they had their own issue going through, I believe it was tow earlier on in the race, trying to make some of that back. And Portis the second, perhaps the next driver to be taken down a position by Timothy Flamger on their, I won't call it quite a revenge tour, but it's one of those in a race where you've got to make up positions, isn't it? You can't stay where you are, and easier said than done. Every position Flamger makes up, the next one becomes exponentially harder to make up, simply because the closer you get to the front, even in your own class, the closer you get to the front, the harder the competition.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's just the knives get sharper and sharper the closer you get to the top. And that's one of those situations where I guarantee right now for Flamger, he's just seeing red, just complete red. He's very annoyed with whatever circumstance probably put him on the outside of the track and the toe of the boot. And he's just doing his absolute best to get back through the field and try and recover all the spots lost here. As you can see riding now with Riera and the number 43 car silver class, currently the leader of the silver brigade. Right now on the rear end here of Alvarado and that 420 there, that Acura just up the road a little bit.
What an interesting situation that these two cars find themselves in. Alvarado isn't necessarily catching Martineau in front. Riera is not necessarily getting caught by Gulzar behind, but it's one of those for Riera that you have to try and make this overtake. You have to kind of make this pass, because Gulzar is closer to Riera than Martineau is to Alvarado. It's one of those where you don't want to impose and you don't want to make a fuss here, but you're going to have to at some point if you continue to catch them. You can't just ride if you're Riera, and they know that for the Geeks Energy sim racing car. They know that they're going to have to get a move on and make this pass eventually. Alvarado, I just hope, is willing to facilitate a little bit, make it a little bit easier, lest they both get stranded.
Yeah, kind of just work with them a little bit, and you'll see more often than not, race car drivers are smart in those situations where one driver might move over to say, all right, you've caught me, I understand you're under pressure, I'll let you go ahead. I'm doing my best to run down the people I'm racing with for championship points. Maybe I can get a tow just behind you as we now go back to this battle for the lead overall for the entire race. Of course, two pro drivers going at it with one another. Rodriguez, he's been the man to beat all season. He's still in that position to beat, still in the lead of this race, but Jade Hutchinson's really been piling on the pressure all day today, certainly the entirety of the time after they came off pit road.
I don't want it to get lost in all of this, but Cody Sherritt did make the pass for third place. I suspect that happened somewhere vaguely around the pit stop, or the pit stops for both of those cars. Cody Sherritt up into P3 overall, leading the silver class, was on pole in that class, and stands to be your championship leader going into the final round. Sherritt would enjoy 102 points if this result holds. Merrick Levesque would be second in that championship with 91 points. That's not insurmountable for Merrick Levesque, is it, Austin, going into the final round? But it will be an uphill battle.
No, it certainly is, but it's one of those situations where you put yourself in and you basically have to be on the attack, right? If you continue to do what you've done all season, you're going to finish exactly where you are. So you just basically pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go out there to just sort of either be a contrarian or just really be aggressive, because you have to go out there. It's basically do or die time at this, and it's really going to set ourselves up really well for the conclusion of the championship in about a month's time at Indianapolis. That's going to be on September 2nd. I cannot wait for that race.
Indianapolis, name a better sports venue for a championship finale. The Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Series ends in just under a month's time. Round number 5 at Indianapolis. We're going to crown a couple of champions. It is going to be a fun time. You're going to want to subscribe to the GT World channel and not miss a thing. And while you're down there, why not like the broadcast that you're currently watching? Give it up for Rodriguez and Hutchinson putting on this amazing chess match mid-race. The best that there are here in North America, absolutely getting it done, putting on a show in one of the best venues that we have.
Yeah, these guys continue to go at it. I just talk about the consistency between both these guys. It seems like every time they go past the flag stand, they're putting down a 143, 1 something. To go around the track this long in length and be basically within 1/10 of a lap from A, your best, but B, every single other lap you've done, that takes some serious skill. And for these guys to do it under pressure or trying to catch up to the guy in front of them, that takes a whole lot of talent. And it has been said time and time before, the mark of a true race car driver is the consistency with which they put the lap times down. You can teach a driver how to be fast, but you can't teach them how to be consistent. Vice versa. Some people have different sayings about speed versus consistency, but to be the best kind of driver, you need both of them.
That's the unfair part of being an esports pro. It's not good enough to just be one or two different superlatives. You have to have every tool in the box. These two definitely do. And Rodriguez, of course, if you weren't with us at the beginning, chasing something of history here today. Nobody here in competition has won 4 pro races in a championship series. It's been done once in the silver class in the European series, but nobody's ever done it in the pro class, and certainly nobody's ever done it here in the Mobileye GT World Challenge America series. He's chasing perfection, essentially, is Rodriguez, but so very close. The closest race he's had all season long, with Hutchinson right behind him. A little bit further back, we showed you this earlier, and is there a pass potentially being made? Riera has caught Alvarado fully, but unfortunately Golzar has caught the both of them. Golzar trying to make a move, going around the outside here. He's given that, and now they go back single file, quite wisely, I would say, as the boot ends. Not really a passing zone through there.
Yeah, worst case scenario right here for Riera, because as soon as he caught up to Alvarado started to put up quite a stink there in terms of getting past. That was an extremely defensive line, kind of going back and forth there towards the toe of the boot. Now, still worst case Riera. He's got Golzar just behind him now, taking a look to the inside, and he's not close enough to get that call from the in-game spotter. Oh, he's going to take advantage. A little bit of a late braking opportunity here to pick up all the pieces is Stefano. Watch this move that Stefano's going to get. He's going to still maybe take him too wide. Oh, that was close. Not quite close enough to shove it up the inside there of Golzar.
Riera moving down the order. Exactly what he was looking to avoid was fighting Alvarado just a lap or so ago, but now he's lost 2 spots. Golzar's through. Stefano's through. Stefano looking for a move, going around the outside of the bus stop. No, thinks better of it. Cuts back in. They're nose to tail, looking for any bit of weakness, none having there. Golzar holds and backs up Stefano just a little bit. Riera looking for revenge maybe as they come down to the boot inside, dictated by Stefano, not willing to give up that line, takes the defensive move, and they end up staying the way they were. This is some high-class driving, and this is some fantastic racing in the mid-pack.
Yeah, all over each other as they go there through the chase, just getting into the toe. Watching everybody's different lines here in the boot is it's really just cool to see all these different drivers kind of attacking one another. Unfortunately, still for Riera, he's got to be the tail end of this little 4 or 5 car battle we have going on here. This kind of gaggle, we'll call it. You got Golzar, then Stefano, and then Riera there. All those drivers chasing the pro driver just up the road ahead. That's the 420 there of Alvera. Now looking at Lovering here.
Loverink, of course, been documenting them all day. They've been very steady in the back half of the top 10. Has Oliveira right in front of him. Could this be a little bit of a revenge pass from earlier on in the day? Oliveira trying to hold up, but Loverink has certainly made inroads here in the 520 for Bricks Racing. And I wonder if maybe lap traffic is coming to play. That Porsche up in front of Oliveira, that is, of course, a lapped car. And you wonder, too, could that be a factor in a lot of these battles, the top 10 catching the lap traffic? Certainly, too, you worry about the lead of the race, which now is up to a second. Rodriguez has outlasted the storm of Hutchinson for the time being. Remember, this happened in the first stint as well. And you have to wonder, did Igor Rodriguez plan that? Hey, if I can just stay in front of him for but maybe 8 laps or so, his car will fall off a little bit like it did in the first run.
Yeah, that's one thing. Race car drivers have memories like an elephant, and elephants remember absolutely everything. So that's no doubt going through his mind right here is, hey, if I just keep piling on the pressure, things might just repeat themselves with time. That's what history does, right? It repeats itself. That's what life always does. So we're seeing if we can get kind of maybe a little bit of a pattern going here. And I think that's what some drivers are eking to see that. Some drivers maybe not so much. But how about this run here, too, from Moreira? He's doing a really good job to kind of recover himself the best he can. Certainly not the run he was hoping for today with such a dismal qualifying session he had. But I tell you what, gaining 5 spots in a race like this is not the end of the world. It's still a good result. They still got 10 more minutes.
Certainly not. Started outside the top 10, and if he was going to make a championship charge, Moreira, he was going to have to start here and now. It hasn't come to pass, but still, like you said, it has been a good race. Started outside the top 10, very dismal qualifying, and now top 10, and it's more than that. Could potentially get 2 to 3 more spots by the end of this race if they can get a move on. Speaking of Moreira, right behind him, Martineau enjoys 11th place, but they have Landry right behind him. That is the black and red Audi you can see in the rear view mirror, and not for position in class. So it's always interesting to see how drivers play this, and there's many different ways, many different thought processes these drivers go through when racing somebody outside their class. A lot of times too, it comes down to what time it is in the race. Certainly here at the end, Austin, you're not given nearly as many breaks as you were early on.
No, definitely not. If it's in the first third of the race, maybe before you've done your pit stop, you might be a little bit nicer to the drivers in different classes to maybe give them a little bit more room, or maybe give them an opening. If they're really trying to get the pass done, you can kind of tuck in behind it. But here, the pay window's opening here in about 8 minutes. You're not going to do anything that's going to compromise your race in any way, shape, or form, because you're getting down to the end of it. You can always recover from a mistake in the earlier parts of this race, but this here is when the bullet hits the bone. You have to be on it every single lap, and you're certainly not going to pull over for somebody you're not even racing with.
Well, you know who's not pulling over? Ayrton Stefano, trying to make one last pass for positions. Got Golzar in the 14 in front. Equal machinery, all Acuras there in a row. Alvarado, of course, if they do maintain and make a pass on Alvarado, that doesn't give them more points in the silver class. So their real battle with Golzar in front. They are losing Riera just a little bit off of the back. Race control intervention, cars 12 and 59, lap 26. 5-second time penalty for car 59 for causing a collision. It's been very quiet all day after the initial start of the race. I think we had 3 penalties the entirety of round number 3 at Silverstone, and I think that makes 3 today if my math is correct. So pretty good discipline out there by all taking part.
Yeah, watch Chris Seifert here. He had a very, very poor start right off the bat. Did a decent job in qualifying, not quite what we'd seen out of him. And of course, being the pro driver there, third in the championship standings, he's going to take a huge hit in the points. And it's so difficult to earn points, especially to earn a lot of them, to overhaul yourself in the championship standings. This is certainly going to put him on the back foot of remaining on that championship podium as we now head into Indianapolis in a month's time. And that is the worst feeling in the world you can have as a driver, is a huge gap between the two races. Looking here at Nick DeSantis, interesting, kind of like a spaceship position there before they launch, kind of sitting on the floor looking up at the ceiling.
Yep, certainly he's got the portrait mode, but it's in landscape mode. Quite interesting there, but all things considered, not the day some of these drivers were looking to have. You mentioned Chris Seifert. Like you said, it's going to be huge for them. It's so out of place, but reminder, the 39, they were among the first to come into pit lane at the beginning of the race, as it all came apart quite early on indeed. But just a reminder, it's not all about who's at the front of the race. There are so many drivers that pour their heart and soul into this, that are here week in and week out, and some weeks it's just not yours, including Patrick here at the Sim Racing Alliance 59. They've had obviously the penalty we talked about, but just came apart their race early on, and you just got to carry on. Got to see that checkered flag, live to fight another day. We'll see him in Indianapolis.
Exactly. It's just one of those situations where you have bad days and you have good days, and this is not one of the good days for them. Talk about Josh Staffen here. Pretty low in the championship point standings. That's kind of a little bit of a surprise for me. Now changing to look at Timothy Flamger here. Again, just to kind of recap his day, he was running, I want to say, in the top 15 or so until he had a little bit of an off in the toe of the boot. Done a decent little job to recover himself here. Trying to see if he can crack into the top 20. He's just got a little bit of room here before he gets up to and overhauls Kenneth Portis. But I tell you what, Ken's been doing a great job today. He's just been extremely solid, making sure that if he's going to be caught by Flamger here, he's really going to have to work for it.
Certainly is. Your give and take is over with. No matter how hospitable you were early on in this race, it is completely over and done with now. It's all take. 5 minutes left to play here. Positions on the table for many in the field still yet to be decided. Morera and Martineau quite close together on the racetrack. Gulzar Stefano still fighting it out in the silver class, and just because they're in the minor positions in silver doesn't mean they're not still fighting. Portis the second and Flamger, just to name a couple of fights.
Looking here, riding on board with Jonathan Clifford, you still see him working the wheel. Extremely difficult right now for these cars to handle. This is the worst they're going to feel pretty much all day when you get down to the end of this race. The tires have pretty much had it. Temperatures here in New York this time of year, I'm not going to say they're as hot as what you'd see maybe at COTA this time of year, especially this time of day, but this is basically the hottest it's going to be, air temperature wise, track temperature as well. Not a doubt in my mind. So those tires currently squealing out in pain. You can see these drivers have their hands full,
trying to extract the best out of what you got, and what you got at this point in the race, let's be honest folks, it isn't a whole lot. The tires are screaming, the drivers screaming. They have been under pressure for an entire hour. It's not like an endurance race where you settle into a groove and you just drive. Nope, that's not what happens here. It is a sprint race by definition, meaning, and principle. Riera trying to make up a little bit of lost time. Remember, lost 2 spots earlier on. Hasn't been able to cover. Hasn't fallen off the back of this group either, but just hasn't been able to close the gap. In fact, nobody here has been able to make the move. Alvarado still leads this train over Gulzar and Stefano, the 3 Acuras in a row, and then Riera, the caboose on that train. By the way, I was talking to some of our British friends. They don't know what a caboose is.
I feel like it's a pretty American thing, the caboose.
I had no idea
how wide world they were, and I think just the caboose in general, we all say it knowing it's the rearest thing of a car in a train of them, but I don't think it's very worldwidely known, or known well worldwide. Looking here at Alvarado, it's so interesting to always see these drivers with different positions, different seating positions in their seats for their sim rigs, and this is kind of one of those deals where he's at a desk. Look at how just upright he's sitting. Talk about posture.
Oh, into the wall there. Nicholas Alvarado into the wall. They're going to pull over, and that's going to allow at least one car through, as that was not exactly what you wanted to see. Oh my goodness! Did they somehow hang on to that position? They did, even after contact with the wall. That will be at least a second or two worth of damage for Nicholas Alvarado, and that's going to make their task a lot more difficult here in the final 2.5 laps of this race.
Yeah, it's very surprising to see that kind of mistake there from a driver of this kind of caliber. But I tell you, it's so easy to make it right now with all those drivers pressuring you from behind, because that's a corner you basically need to pick up the throttle as early as possible.
Oh, Ayrton!
Way off track. I don't know if that was a boot from behind, or maybe he just had an extremely poor exit there from their bus stop. But Jesse, it's just like what you said about a half hour ago. If you really kind of screw up the exit of the bus stop, you're going to find yourself going way through wide on the carousel.
Yeah, there's no grip through the carousel or the outer loop there, because I mentioned right before the race started, in fact, that the camera view, the overhead view that we had, it showed the marbles on the outside of the racetrack, saying that if you went wide, it was going to be a big problem for you. It has been. I think that exacerbated the issues there Stefano had. I definitely agree with you. I think he hit the outside curb, or excuse me, it would have been the inside curb, and that shot him off the racetrack, but he had really no time to recover because the marbles is just like ice. It doesn't help you in any way, so had to completely slow the car down. He got onto the negative camber part of the racetrack as well, and had to re-enter the bowl, so to speak, the carousel part. Just a scary moment. Gave up a position there and may have given up the fight for more silver points.
Yeah, it's such a scary position to be in there, because your car goes kind of weightless. It bumps around. It's impossible to steer or control the car when it's in the air, right? And basically, even at the upper part of that bowl, the carousel there where all the banking is, there's marbles. It's basically on thin ice right there. And once you get off of that banked part of the track, it flattens out. It's almost like you're in negative banking there, a negative camber. So it's if it's not impossible to control the car in marbles, it's even worse here, as you see Marek Levesque going around another competitor there. I believe that's a lap car. Can't quite make out the number on the side of it. I do know it is a lap car in the 24th position overall.
What can you say about Renan Negrini for Asetek Simsport? They started inside the top 3 of the race. They went back 1 spot, but it hasn't hurt them in their overall. They're looking like they're going to be a shoe-in for the pro podium here today. It's been a pretty complete race. They didn't have to necessarily fight anybody inside of their own class, as it's all come to plan. Now he's just got to get it back around for 1 more lap. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the last lap of the day.
And talk about Cody Sherritt. He continues to impress here in this silver category, obviously going out there and dominating the same way that we've seen Rodriguez do it. But for Sherritt, it's kind of a little bit of a different beast. You got to go up there and battle with all the different pro guys. And how about Jade Hutchinson? Not going to come out of here with the lead, but as a race car driver, this is one of those situations where you didn't go up there and beat that big behemoth, that giant, but you went up there and you held your own with him for a long time, more so than a lot of people in this series have done for the entire season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. More so than anyone's done. Nobody has kept it this close to Rodriguez all season long. And for Williams Esport, it's going to be an absolute dream come true. They have a driver who has utterly dominated the Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Series. It's going to be 4 on the trot, and that might just be championship for the pro class done and dusted before they ever take to the track at Indianapolis. But what a feeling. We talked to Rodriguez earlier on into the year about, could it be possible? Could you win out? He said, if things go my way and if I drive to the level I know I can, it is possible. He's showing us that it's more than possible. It's becoming reality. Here he is. Igor Rodriguez for Williams wins 4 in a row.
Jade Hutchinson going to come home in second place. And unfortunately for everyone else, Igor said, if it rains, I don't think I can necessarily go out there and clinch the win of the race. But fortunately for Rodriguez, it was a dry as a bone here today. It's a saltine cracker, you might say, in a desert. Cody Sherritt going to come home in 3rd position overall. He's going to nab himself the win in the silver category. And talk about another butt whooping for Rodriguez to put on the rest of the field.
Just super good. Hutchinson, a fantastic 2nd place, kept it close for Automobile Lamborghini. Cody Sherritt, indeed. Cody Sherritt, 3rd place, but 1st in the silver class, will take control of the silver championship. Negrini, 3rd in the pro class, stands on that podium. You've got Whirl in the number 40, will come home 2nd in silver. Levesque gets third and will still have hope alive for a championship in 1 month's time. Everybody else coming across the line. Barrera into the barn of Oliveira. You've got Martineau, Landry, Alvarado, Gulzar, Riera, who did get by Stefano, mind you. Stefano with that slip. All of the cars coming to the line. Just what a hard-fought race. Pit stops just drew cars back to each other, put on a heck of a show up and down this top 20.
Yeah, it was really difficult to kind of separate yourself from the rest of the pack, whether it was a driver in front or a driver behind. It seemed like every time a driver had kind of a security net, it went away almost 9 times out of 10. And I want to touch on this too in terms of the championship points battle as well. The two closest drivers for that pro championship, Moreira and Sievert, they both had some awful races for them. They did a good job, no, not knocking them, but in terms of being a championship competitor, that was nothing nearly as close as to what we're used to seeing out of them. And I think that might put the lock and key into this championship, but we'll wait for all the math nerds to let us know.
Well, it's going to be an interesting fight for P2 in the silver class. You've got Moreira and Hutchinson now, who are just separated by about 10 points. They will do the fighting amongst themselves for the second step of the podium. That's just about as good as they could possibly do, as Igor de Oliveira Rodriguez has scored a maximum 144 points through 4 rounds. Incredible. Cody Sherritt, 102 points. Merrick Levesque on 91. Estefano Barrera on 70, your top 3 in the silver class. All that, of course, subject to change and not official. My goodness. Mentioned earlier, we had talked to Rodriguez several times throughout the season about their chances of being able to win out. Said it was possible. It was going to be difficult, though. We saw him. He was flexing on the camera. He's super happy about it. Can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, he should be absolutely ecstatic with this one and definitely proud of himself. And there's a lot of reasons that all the drivers should. This is a hard racetrack. It's extremely hard to get it right for the hour long that these drivers did. It's been nothing short of phenomenal.
Well, let's talk to him. Our winner, 4 races in a row. Nobody has ever done it in the Mobileye GT World Challenge America Series. Nobody's ever done it in SRO Esports competition quite like Igor Rodriguez. Tell us about your day.
Igor, maybe
hello?
push to talk or something. There we go.
Hello, sorry. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm really happy. I did my previous best on the quali, so I was confident into the race. I knew it was going to be like a bit hard because Audi lose a bit on race pace compared to other cars when you compare the cars to quali. And yeah, like Hudson really pushed me, and everything went great.
You had a heck of a race. You were never really clear. You could always see that Lamborghini right behind you. How did you stay cool and calm and just drive the race of your season so far?
Yeah, to be honest, like I was like a bit nervous because Hudson was not letting me go easy. And with slipstream, like I knew my mission was to get him out of my slipstream, but Audi is just strong on the straights, and Hudson was always like catching me on the mid to the end of the track, and yeah, it was really hard. So as soon as I got him out of the slip, I knew I could like keep the pace and maybe get a good gap.
Igor, we caught you as you crossed the line. You were super excited. You were flexing in the camera. You're absolutely feeling it at this point. Surely you think you can go 5 for 5 now.
Yeah, I will try. Like Audi, I think is really strong on Indianapolis, and if the condition is like this, like just sunny, dry, should be maybe another win. And also, I think I'm champion. I'm not sure. I need to do the calculations.
Well, we are going to see you at Indianapolis regardless, but for today at Watkins Glen, it was another clinical race. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner of round 4, Igor Rodriguez for Williams Esports.
Thank you, everyone.
Just an incredible drive, a driver that knows what to do to get the best out of his race car, Austin, and just happiest guy you'll ever see, too.
Yeah, I mean, he should be, right? It takes a lot of effort to win these races, and he's just gone out there. And I'm not going to say he stomped the field like every other race, but you know what? To have somebody on his back like that for the entire race, we haven't seen Igor win a race like that where he had been pressured like this the entire time. So that really impressed me today.
Certainly impressed us as well. Somebody else that impressed us today, Cody Sherritt, was racing the pros in the silver class, had an early sort of battle with the silvers, but ended up having to fight for overall podium honors. Cody, tell us about your race.
Yeah, I think I had very good race pace compared to my quali. I did struggle a lot in the beginning because with the Ferrari it tends to struggle a lot when we're behind the cars, and so the closer I got to the Audi ahead of me, the more I struggled, and so I pitted early to try undercut, and it worked.
You were one of the few cars that actually worked for. Did you know that the pit undercut was going to work, or were you just hoping at that point it was going to work?
I knew in the beginning. I knew it was going to come to that final lap, so I pretty much saved it all on the end lap, and I think it was a lot quicker than what the Audi did. So I think that's what helped me a lot.
Well, it was just fantastic to watch you drive. What's it like out there racing against somebody? Austin and I speculated all day long what it was like. You were in a silver class, you're racing for the silver championship, and now you have a better than good shot. You're leading that champ, right? So what was it like battling the pro class all day? Was there extra care taken in that, or was it just pure determination more than anything to get away from the rest of your class?
I think it does sit a little bit in the back of your head because you don't want to make a mistake and you can put it in the wall, and that's the championship over. So I pretty much just kept my nose there. I didn't really try to do anything too dangerous, and because it didn't really mean much for me, so I just kept it clean.
Well, you've come from behind. Obviously, no points in the first round at Circuit of the Americas, but you've been absolutely fantastic. You've done nothing but got better as the season's gone long. You've taken the fight to Levesque. Now you're the championship leader going into the final round. What can we expect out of you at Indianapolis?
I'm not quite sure because at the moment the Ferrari is the slowest car at that track, so hopefully you can try get a good bop for the race, but I'll definitely do my best, put a lot of laps in to hopefully bring the championship to me.
Well, I got to say, you certainly put on a show out there today. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner in the silver class here at Watkins Glen, Cody Sherritt for Genesis Esports.
Thank you, guys.
Cody Sherritt, always a lovely guy to talk to, but I will say he's a lot more shy than most other drivers, sort of downplaying his chances. He wants to stay grounded, Austin.
Yeah, you love to see that from a race car driver too. I mean, he has every reason in the world to be full of himself right now and kind of have that huge ego going on, but instead he decides to stay reserved, cool, calm, collected, very nonchalant about that, and I love to see it personally.
Well, folks, I wasn't going to announce this based on the fact that I did not want to have to announce this and be wrong about it, but I have been given the green light. Igor Rodriguez is your 2023 Mobileye GT World Challenge America Esports Pro Series champion. I think we all knew that, but he is officially your champion, according to the fine folks behind me that told me that, yes, I can say that. And the championship for Pro might be over, but many positions besides still in doubt, and we will see you at Indianapolis for the final round, September the 2nd, just under a month from now. Like, subscribe. A big thank you to everyone that helps put on this production: Mobileye, Fanatec, AWS, Pirelli, AK Esports, SimGrid, SRO in general, SRO Esports, and of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione. Austin, final thoughts.
Oh, this race had it all. I just loved how Rodriguez got pressure there, but he stayed true to who he was. And he continued to just kind of ring that bell of, hey, I'm the best in the business. If you want to come in here and take it, you're going to have to do it the hard way. And Hutchinson continued to press him. Hutchinson really ought to be proud of himself. And I'm really, it's good, but it's unfortunate that that pro championship is all wrapped up. You kind of knew that it was Rodriguez's as soon as we were about halfway through the season and he was going to take it home. But it is kind of bittersweet that it gets locked up for him in an entire race early. But there's still that silver championship to go on to. And Sherritt showed a lot of why he's the championship leader, of course, winning today. But Levac, he's not going to go down without a fight. And we just saw the kind of fight that Barrera and Gulzar had as well. So I'm really excited for about 28 days time or something.
Certainly is. And before we leave you, the dynamic shot of the race, the 520 car with that fantastic livery coming through the final couple of corners, and just a beautiful race car, a beautiful shot. Thank you to Dynamic and the team for their photography and providing that photo as well. Folks, that's just about it from us. I have been Jesse Lee, joined by Austin Belke, and we will see you in just under a month's time for the finale. Thank you all for watching, and until then, have a good night.